What we're going to do is look at geometric sequences. Geometric sequences are similar to arithmetic. The only difference is instead of adding or subtracting, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply or divide. Now, whenever we're dividing, we're going to write it as a fraction. So if we're multiplying by 2, we just put a 2. But if we're dividing by 2, what we're going to do is we're going to times it by a half. Remember, whenever we divide, then what we're doing is we're multiplying it by the reciprocal. So that's why we're getting the 1/2. Now, remember with arithmetic, a sub 1 is our first term. But instead of a d, what we have is an r. Because we're not adding or subtracting, we're multiplying once again. Now, our formula, instead of looking like a linear equation, it looks like an exponential. So whenever we see an exponential equation, that's similar to a geometric formula. So what we're going to do is we're going to find our first term and common ratio. Our first term, obviously, is whatever number comes first. So a sub 1 equals 3. And our common ratio, notice that we're not adding or subtracting. What's happening is that we're timesing it by 2. So that means that r is equal to 2. And so instead of putting a d, what we're doing is we're putting an r. So with letter B, once again, a sub 1 is really easy to find. It's just our first term. So a sub 1 equals 64. Notice that in this case, what we're doing is we're dividing it by 4. So since we're dividing it by 4, what we're going to do is we're going to put the common ratio is 1/4. Pause the video and try letter C and see what you get. So with letter C, what we notice is that we have our first term, which is a sub 1, and that would be negative 81. Then what's happening is that we're dividing it by 3. Now, if you didn't know what was going on, what you could do is you could take the second term and divide it by the first term. Or what you could do is you could take the third term and divide it by the second term. Or you could take the fourth term and divide it by the third term. In all of those cases, what you notice is that your common ratio is 1/3. Once again, you do that if you're not sure, if you're looking at it and you can't tell what the pattern is. For example 2, this time we're writing the recursive and the explicit formulas. So we have a sub 1 equals 2. We see that we're multiplying it by 3. So we have a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 times 3. For the explicit, a sub n equals, we have 2 times 3 raised to the n minus 1. And those would be our two formulas. So for the second one, our a sub 1 is 1, and we're multiplying it by 3. So with this one right here, we have a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 times 3. And so a sub n equals 1 times 3 to the n minus 1. Pause the video and try the next one. So notice that with this one right here, what we're doing is we're timesing it by 2. So what we have is we have our a sub 1 equals negative 2. A sub n equals a sub n minus 1, and we times it by 2. Then for our explicit, a sub n equals negative 2 times 2, and then we have n minus 1. For example 3, what we're going to do is we're going to take our recursive form and we're going to convert it into an explicit form. So we have our first term, we have our common ratio. So we have a sub n equals 2 times 4 to the n minus 1. For letter B, we have a sub n equals 5. Our common ratio is 2/5, so times 2/5. Make sure it's in parentheses, raised to the n minus 1. Notice that we're not multiplying these numbers. We have to leave it here because order of operations, we have to do the exponent first before we multiply. So don't think you're simplifying it by multiplying it. It has to be in this form. Pause the video and try the next one. A sub n equals 1/3. And then we have times 3 to the n minus 1.